The Wererinos are big, they are dumb, and they are second best to the Yeren, and we're going to talk about them. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome to the Maple Table. My name's Nathaniel. This is a channel where we discuss lore around some of your favorite role-playing games such as Starfinder, Werewolf the Apocalypse. If that's something you're interested in, I would love to have you join me at the table. You can do so by hitting that subscribe button and that bell notification. Kerasi are Wererinos. They are short-tempered, brutish, and just general ill-mannered. It is also very unlikely that a Garou would run into them outside of Africa, as that is generally where they are located. The climate is perfect, not only just in temperature, but also politically, and with the amount of corruption that the worm can do there, it's just the perfect place for them to be in. The Kerasi also have a special ability that they can use to suppress their worm taint, or their worm stink, if you will. Because the Kerasi can hide the one thing that other shapeshifters would use to identify them as being part of the worm, they often use this to their advantage to try and convince other Fera, the shape changers, the werewolves, that they are in fact aligned with Gaia. And when that doesn't work because they're not particularly persuasive, that's when brute strength comes into the picture, and they will use it to try to keep their secret from getting out. It should come as no surprise that Pentex is very interested in the continent of Africa. There is so much political tension, it's very close to many nations, and its diverse culture. There are lots of resources and wilderness that it can exploit for its own gains, for its own purposes. And it does have the legacy of having one of the bloodiest wars, shapeshifter wars, since the Wars of Rage. And you can check out my video on the Simba up here. Kerasi are also extremely young, especially for Mockery breeds as well. They were intended to be used as shock troops in Africa, as the werewolves would have drawn way too much attention. NDL, or Neurodynamic Laboratories, experimented on both the white rhino and the black rhino, using the techniques that they had done through some of the other Mockery breeds, and perfected some of those techniques along the way. The Kerasi's ability to hide its worm smell makes it one of the most successful breeds, or at least have the potential to be one of the most successful Mockery breeds out there. As I said, it's hiding the one thing that all the other Fera are using to tell if you're part of the worm or not. Kerasi have also infiltrated very successfully many of the Fera groups. Obviously, the groups that you would find in Africa, yes, not so much anywhere else. I guess one downside to the Kerasi is that they don't have a human form, and this has hampered some of their infiltration efforts. NDL scientists are under considerable pressure to try to make the wererinoceroses smarter. Rhinoceri? The NDL scientists are under considerable pressure to make them smarter. The problem is, every time they make the Kerasi smarter, it increases the worm smell, and that doesn't go away. And anytime that they have made a human form of this wererinoceros, it has turned out nothing less than monstrous. Now, Pentex does consider the Kerasi a success. They are second only to the Yeren, and I have talked about the Yeren, and you can see them up here. Now, the NDL scientists are under considerable pressure to make the Kerasi more intelligent. This has also been their focus moving forward as well, being that you have something that's done second best, you want to improve on that. This has, however, made the Yeren very upset, and they are not a fan of this. They are happy being the top dog, or the top ape, as it were. So it's very common for the Yeren to interfere in the scientific experiments, steal data, sabotage data, anything that they can do in slowing down the research that NDL is doing. Now, a Kerasi will heal at the same rate as a Garou. They have the same regenerative capabilities. They also do not have a silver weakness, nor any known material weakness. And the delirium, it just doesn't affect them either. But they do incite delirium in two of their forms, and these are called Bandia and Kiforu, and they cannot enter the Umbra. They cannot go into the spirit world. A Wererino in its Bandia form is quite a scary thing. It is the closest thing to a humanoid form that this Mockery breed has. But it is basically a walking slab of muscle in this form. It has some gray skin that covers that muscle and doesn't do a very good job of hiding how thick they are. They have large, oversized heads with small, beady eyes, and they have a proto-horn that just sort of comes right out the front of their head. The skin also has a bit of an off-gray color to it. You could mistake this for a human, a very well solid built one in very dark light or very dim light, but I wouldn't rely on that. So what does the Kiforu form look like? Basically, it looks like a giant war rhinoceros. It has a armored body of natural materials, but it is very, very strong. It has a giant rhino head. They will also have 4-fingered claws, and they are extremely sharp. And in this form, the Kerasi will stand about 12 to 14 feet tall. And for the rest of you, that's about 365 centimeters or 426 somewhere in there. The horns that protrude out of that bugger's face, they are a blood red shade of red, probably because of all the stabbing they do. Oh yeah, and this sucker weighs between 1 to 2 tons in this form. 1 ton is 907 kilograms, so just double that if it's 2 tons. Now, in their Feru form, this is a much more reasonable form, being that this is the one that actually makes them look like a rhinoceros. They will be slightly larger than the breed that they are supposed to represent, and their horn will still have that bit of a red tinge to it, so they're easily identifiable in a crowd if you know what to look for. Pentex really likes to use the Kerasi in Africa. As I mentioned, that's the only place that you will be able to find them. The Kerasi leave large amounts of devastation in their wake, and unfortunately none of the changing breeds, none of the Fera seem to know that the Kerasi are involved, and that's largely because they're able to mask their worm taint so effectively. Part of the Pentex strategy when it comes to wreaking havoc and devastation in Africa with Pentex and the Kerasi, a human team will go into the area first that they want to sow seeds of destruction. They will leave evidence that points back to either the Ahadi or to Blacktooth's camp. This usually incites a little bit more violence from those two warring groups. Pentex also introduced some of Blacktooth's senior advisors to the Kerasi. The Kerasi were able to actually turn the tides on several difficult battles, and this led Blacktooth's senior advisors to sing the praises of the Wererinos. Now, the history of the mocking breeds begins at Neurodynamics Laboratories. I've mentioned them a little bit through this video, but in my Werewolves video up here, I've gone into great detail about NDL. If you haven't seen the Werewolves video, the cliff notes are as follows. NDL is owned by Pentex. NDL was running a project that they had titled Project Iliad. Iliad was the Mockery breed program that they were working on. They stole a bunch of research and science from DNA, Developmental Neogenetics Amalgamated, and this company was basically dedicated to solving the shape-changer DNA or the shape-changer gene. They were also owned by Pentex. And the ultimate goal was to have a group of changing breeds that were a little bit more reliable than black spiral dancers. And while none of the creatures that they came up with had the ability to change into more than 2 or 3 forms, it was certainly enough to catch the interest and the wallets of the higher-ups in Pentex. So what are my thoughts on the Kerasi? Well, I think they would be difficult to work into a campaign. Unless you're specifically telling a story in the African Sahara, it's unlikely that any of your group or your parties are going to run into these beast machines. Now, if you do want to tell some stories that are using the Ahadi and Blacktooth's Endless Storm tribe, then I would suggest definitely taking a look at the Kerasi, maybe sprinkle them in as some extra flavor. If you're looking for that political intrigue, definitely use them for this, as this is kind of what they were built for. If you want something that's a little more straightforward, maybe you could still work them in, but don't work the political intrigue aspect. If you want to get your players into an African setting, then maybe having them intercept some kind of Yeren message talking about their assets being disrupted or successes they've had against the Kerasi in Africa. And Pentex is usually reason enough to go anywhere where they are, which is everywhere. If you found some value out of the video today, then let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Thank you to my patrons for making videos like this possible. It really does mean a lot to me that you support me in this way. Thank you. If you'd like to learn more about the Mockery breeds, then please check out the playlist that is on your screen now. My name's Nathaniel. You've been watching The Maple Table. Thank you so much for your subscription. Thanks for stopping by, everyone.